The story begins as Maggie, a young and confident heiress, sets off with her partner Peter to an old British estate unexpectedly left to her as an inheritance. Maggie has never been interested in her lineage or family secrets, preferring to live a quiet life, but the will she receives awakens her curiosity. Peter supports her in this, although he himself sees the trip more as an exciting adventure than a serious event. When they arrive, they discover a somber, stately building surrounded by dense woods and ancient gardens that preserve its austere beauty. As they enter, they immediately feel some inexplicable heaviness. They are greeted by a local servant and a lawyer, who explains the formalities of the inheritance and familiarizes them with some important aspects of the house's condition. It seems to Maggie that from the first step she feels the influence of something ancient, almost invisible, that hides behind the walls and in the dark corridors of the house. The first evening at the estate is uneventful. Peter, curious and witty, tries to cheer Maggie up, but her mood remains subdued and she is confused by the strange atmosphere in the house. There seems a strange silence around them, which is sometimes broken by subtle footsteps and sounds, as if someone is moving in dark corners. At night, as they retire to their rooms, Maggie dreams of her long-dead relatives, who seem to whisper something to her. Waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, she decides to ignore it and writes it off as overwork. The next day, Maggie and Peter start exploring the house. They find many paintings with images of her ancestors. One of the paintings catches Maggie's attention is a portrait of a woman who bears a striking resemblance to herself. Peter notices the resemblance too and jokes that perhaps it is a prediction of fate. However, Maggie senses that it's not just a coincidence. The woman in the painting seems to be looking right at her, as if she knows something important. Peter, on the other hand, laughs at her superstition, but respects her feelings and suggests that she not focus on it. A few days later, strange events begin to happen at the estate. In one of the dark corridors, Maggie notices the figure of a man standing in the distance. He doesn't move, but simply watches her. When she tries to get closer, he disappears, as if vanishing into thin air. She can't tell if this is a dream or reality. Peter notices that her condition is worsening. She begins to lose sleep and her appetite. In response to his questions, Maggie confesses that she feels that something evil is present in the house, some dark force that she cannot explain. Peter, always rational and not inclined to mysticism, only laughs and advises her to rest, but deep down he begins to feel something wrong. Over the next few days, they meet locals and servants who tell strange stories about Maggie's family. One of the servants mentions that all the women in the family have been marked by a curse that lurks in the house. Maggie becomes seriously worried about her fate. She eventually decides to research the archives of the house, hoping to find answers to her questions. She discovers that her ancestors engaged in occult practices, tried to summon spirits, and allegedly made a deal with dark forces to maintain their power and wealth. In one of the old diaries, handwritten by the woman in the portrait, she finds mention of a curse that is passed from one woman to another in their family. It turns out that this woman has also seen the same visions and figures as Maggie. Her fear is heightened when she finds the ritual hall hidden behind old rugs and library shelves. The room is still filled with ancient candles, skulls, and symbols that seem to represent ancient beliefs. Maggie feels cornered, realizing that she may have fallen victim to something dark. Peter, meanwhile, finds another diary that describes how the previous owners tried to get rid of the curse, but all to no avail. At first he was skeptical of everything, but now he begins to realize that what is happening in the house cannot be accidental. Later that night, Maggie sees the same woman from the portrait again. This time she looks even more real and approaches Maggie as if trying to say something. Shocked and frightened, Maggie realizes that her life may be in danger. She hears the woman repeating a name as if urging her to do something. Maggie decides she needs to leave home, but realizes it may already be too late. In desperation, Maggie turns to the local priest, who tells her that her family was known for its dark deeds and that leaving the estate may not be such an easy decision. He warns that leaving the house will not be possible until the link to the curse is broken. Maggie is distraught, but decides to perform a purification ritual to free herself from this terrible power once and for all. On the last day, she and Peter spend the night in the ritual hall. They light candles and begin to read texts found in ancient books. Maggie feels fear overwhelm her, but she also feels that she is approaching some kind of liberation. Suddenly, the room fills with a strange light and the very figure appears before them. It seems as if she appears before Maggie as the embodiment of the curse. Maggie resolutely repeats the words of the ritual, and at that moment the room is enveloped in a bright light, and the figure disappears as the light fades. They feel the house release its dark power. The next morning, they leave the estate, realizing that perhaps they have finally freed themselves from the family's ancient legacy. Maggie leaves with a sense of relief, feeling that her life will change forever.